No, I'd never heard of Barry Seal before I had read the script to American Made. I knew the events that are portrayed in American Made, because my father actually had run the investigation into these events for Congress. But I hadn't actually seen I never thought about what the story would look like from the point of view of a pilot flying for the CIA until I read Gary Spinelli's screenplay. What's part of what makes Barry Seal's story, so fun and exciting and crazy is that, while flying for the CIA, he became one of the wealthiest men in America. And, it's one of these stories where, he was involved in really significant world events, but you've never heard of him. And that makes telling the story that much more fun, because as you're hearing the story, you're like, oh, that's how that happened. I knew the end result. I didn't know who was doing it. The decision to go to Tom Cruise for American Made for me was one of, the story was going to be about flying. And I know that Tom's an avid pilot, and together we would, we have such a great collaboration that it was like together we're going to come up with flying sequences, that are going to be extraordinary. And because he's a pilot, he'll be doing all his own flying. But just on the conceptual stage of making a movie, I thought Tom and I have such a great collaboration and working relationship that, like, we'll keep pushing each other. We're going to come up with some really original action sequences with airplanes if I make this with Tom. So I'm part of casting Tom Cruise is thinking about Tom Cruise as like a co-director or a producer or studio executive, just somebody who's going to be a great creative collaborator or screenwriter. And then he can do all of that, but then he can actually deliver the goods and act in the movie. And people forget, because that Tom Cruise actually became a star because of his acting ability. Not because he was in action movies. He became a star because of movies like Risky Business, which was a comedy, or Top Gun, which is, has action in it, but it's not an action hero in the traditional sense like he became in, say, Mission Impossible, and in films like Taps and Jerry Maguire, that he's really a phenomenal actor. And he's an extraordinary stuntman. When you work with Tom Cruise, sometimes I'll have a stunt double demonstrate a stunt just so he can look and see what it's going to look like, so he can then get in there and do it better. And there's no other actor like that. Other actors, you're like, when the stunt guy does it, it's better, but I can't photograph their face, so you have this sort of horrible dilemma of, do I want the better stunt, but I got to be wider because I can't see the guy's face, or do I do it with my actor, and it's like I have to compromise in terms of what the stunt is. With Tom Cruise, you get both. I really do think working with Tom Cruise ups my game. It's like any other, you're playing a sport. If you play against a better opponent, you play better. Or if if you're a musician, probably if you play with other better musicians, your ability comes up. And I think as a filmmaker, Tom brings out the best in me. And I think he does that not just with me, but with the other directors he works with, because how could he not? He creates a really safe working environment. I mean, the first time I ever worked with Tom Cruise, we were, months from starting to shoot Edge of Tomorrow, and we were having a tense script meeting with the studio and the producers, and I snapped at Emily Blunt, who suggested an idea that I didn't think worked right, and there's so much pressure and tension that I just snapped for a moment, and Emily was like, whoa, easy. I'm like, I've never made a movie like this before. And I said back, I've never made a movie like this before either. And suddenly the producer's like, oh my God, this is like a $150 million movie, and you don't know what you're doing? And Tom Cruise steps in and says, yeah, I'm excited to watch Doug figure out how to make this movie. I want to see what that movie is. I'm excited that he doesn't necessarily have all the answers today, and I want to see how he figures it out. That's the movie I want to be in. How much more of a safe environment can the biggest movie star in the world give to a director than what Tom Cruise gave to me on that day? And ever since then, we've had this very, very honest and safe environment where, you know, Tom Cruise was acting in a scene in American Made, and he was going for it. I mean, this is, Barry Seal is way outside, you know, what you would think would be Tom Cruise's comfort zone. If you look at the roles he's done of late, it's, you know, it's a really serious anti-hero. And Tom Cruise was willing to try everything. I mean, he was willing to show us, you know, all sides he's never shown before, including like his backside. Because we're like, what would it be like if Barry Seal moons the camera, and, you know, where's too far? And Tom was trying something and it wasn't working, and I was trying to figure out how to tell him it wasn't working. And, you know, you're trying to be positive. So I'm like, Tom, that was, and I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it to sort of be positive but say it's not working. And Tom just says, that was terrible? And I'm like, yeah, it was terrible. That was terrible. And Tom was like, yeah, I knew it was terrible. I could just feel it was terrible. I'm like, yeah, it really was terrible. And he's like, yeah, it was. And he's like, all right, let's try again. You know, when you can tell an actor, you know, that performance was terrible, and you have that kind of safe environment, you know, then you're both really comfortable to go for it and create characters like he created with Barry Seal. And by the way, it's infectious to the crew, you know, because we were shooting another scene and it really wasn't working, and Tom knew it wasn't working, and Sarah Wright Olsen knew it wasn't working, and I knew it wasn't working, but we're just at it hour after hour after hour trying to make this scene work, and it just was never going to work. And at a certain point, Cesar Scioloni, our DP, chimes in, during this scene, I go to the bathroom. We're like, what? He didn't just say this to me, he announced it to the set. We're like, what? He goes, when this scene is on the screen in the movie theater, this is the scene I leave and go to the bathroom. And we're like, it's that bad? It's like, oh, I was like, I knew it was that bad. And Tom's like, yeah, I knew it was, you know, and we hadn't said it to each other yet. We're like, this scene's just never gonna work, is it? It's like, I mean, and then we called a wrap and we figured out how to rewrite the scene, and we shot it 2 weeks later, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. But you needed this environment where, like, Cesar felt safe to just say, like, this scene's so bad that people are gonna leave during the scene to go to the bathroom rather than stay and watch it.